Cut the music, folks. Cut the music. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Celtics Talk Weekly Postgame Live. I am your host, Seamus. We're going solo tonight because, folks, look at the bottom of the screen here. The Celtics have delivered Celtics Nation an absolutely awful Christmas gift on the day of Christmas. Of course, first of all, everybody out there, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to everyone joining me here on the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show. Unfortunately, the Celtics, they didn't want to give us a great Christmas gift, whether it was against the Bulls, whether it was against the Magic, whether it was against the Philadelphia 76ers actually on Christmas at the TD Garden. And let me just make sure real quick. All right, cool. We were just checking the audio because solo show, one man show. We want to make sure everybody hears me here because I know we had a couple of shows last year. Started out with no audio. Don't want to have that happen again. But the Boston Celtics, of course, you see on the bottom of the screen, fall to the Philadelphia 76ers 118 to 114 at the TD Garden on Christmas Day. In the middle of the day, arguably a primetime game. And the Celtics, of course, now losers of 3 of the last 4 games. The Boston Celtics are doing something right now, folks, that we have not really seen them do since 2023, or rather the 2022-23 Celtics do. Now, this game, the Boston Celtics came out extremely flat early on in the first quarter. It was very evident something was off with the Boston Celtics early in the game. There was a lot of sloppiness, a lot of turnovers early on in the game. The Celtics were just turning the ball over like crazy against the Philadelphia 76ers. And of course, the Sixers were taking advantage of those turnovers from the Boston Celtics. And let's note this about this game before we really get into it. The Philadelphia 76ers came into this game a different Philadelphia 76ers squad. All season, everybody's been questioning the Sixers. Oh, can they do it when they're healthy? Can they ever get healthy? Is this team even going to make the playoffs after their putrid start where they're sitting 15th in the Eastern Conference, even behind the Washington Wizards through 15 games? Yet now, the Philadelphia 76ers, they're 11 and 17. They came into this game with a healthy Paul George, with a healthy Joel Embiid, and really a healthy rest of the roster, as we'll get into as we go further into this show. But this Philadelphia 76ers team was a lot closer to the team most people expected to see coming into this season rather than actually the team they started out as, which was really 2 and 15, just looking absolutely atrocious. But the Boston Celtics in this game, before we get any further here, let's look at the lead tracker because this one is going to be extremely important to look at to really summarize this game. And really, every lead tracker is important to look at to summarize the game. This one just, come on, Celtics. Come on, Boston Celtics. We really wanted to see more green on this Christmas. It's great that we're playing some red opponents to see some red and green on this lead tracker, but we don't really want to see much red. And yet the Celtics, look at this. Just look at this. Too much red, not enough green. Of course, you love the Christmas colors, but you don't love the amount of green whatsoever. The Celtics, of course, really have no control over this game at any point in time whatsoever. Very indicative by the lead tracker. You see the Philadelphia 76ers, they were in control of this game for most of the way throughout. The Celtics, of course, mounted a comeback there in the third quarter, finally took the lead. Now they were up 9-8 early in this game. 9-8, all right? Not, not amazing, not a substantial lead, 1 point lead. But when the Celtics, you see that little green mark right there in the first quarter, that first quadrant, that was the 9-8 lead the Celtics had. They did not hold another lead until the third quarter when it was 78-76. And even at that point in the game, we thought, oh, the Celtics, they mounted a comeback. They came all the way back. Now push the throttle forward into the fourth quarter and really put a stamp on this game, whether it's Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown, of course, started this game out atrociously and then went into the third quarter and played lights out. Started the game 1 of 8, and then in the third quarter shot 6 of 10. So Jaylen Brown really started to pick it up throughout the game. Yet in the fourth quarter, folks, you see that fourth quarter avalanche by the Philadelphia 76ers, a 21-6 run to start the fourth quarter for the Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers started out the fourth quarter 8 of 10 from the floor, and really 8 of 9 after they missed their first shot from the floor. And then 5 of 5, folks, 5 of 5 from 3-point land to start the fourth quarter. And it really goes in with the theme what the Celtics have been doing lately, which is letting opponents jump on them, particularly early in the fourth quarter, digging themselves a hole and needing to climb out of it. The Celtics, of course, were able to mount a tiny comeback there at the end of the fourth quarter, as you see, but it really was not enough. The Celtics did not have nearly enough time in order to come back. And we'll get into the logistics of why the Celtics were not able to come back. And also to note this, the Celtics 2 of 7 to start that fourth quarter, as you see the avalanche for the Philadelphia 76ers in that lead tracker. Now, the lead tracker is always indicative of where the Celtics really are. And as of late, we're not really seeing much green. Now, we saw a lot of green in Chicago when the Celtics were playing Saturday or last Saturday in Chicago against the Bulls. And that was the second night of a home and home against the Chicago Bulls. And we were saying, look, that lead tracker from last Saturday, that is what ultimately won the Celtics this over here, the Larry O'Brien trophy, or this version of the Larry O'Brien trophy right here. The Celtics were dominant last season in terms of the entirety of games. They started out games hot, and you saw that lead tracker consistently tick up for the Celtics throughout a game. And yeah, you would see a couple games last year where it'd go back and forth, or the Celtics would relinquish a lead, but those moments were few and far between. This year so far, we're seeing a lot of the opposite. We're seeing other teams jump on the Celtics, and the Celtics, they're going to have to just dig themselves out of the hole they're creating, which we saw on the lead tracker that was just up on screen. The Celtics dug themselves multiple holes throughout the game against the Philadelphia 76ers, were able to dig out of one of them, and then the other one, they almost dug themselves out of, but too many defensive lapses, too many just miscommunicational moments out on the floor for the Celtics really hampered the Celtics' ability to actually go out and win this game the way that they should have. Because you look at the records, you look at who the Celtics are, you look at the 76ers, who they are. Of course, they are a much improved team at this point in time, but the Celtics, much better team than the Philadelphia 76ers in terms of cohesion, in terms of longevity of this group being together, already winning a championship, of course. Yet when you watch this game on Christmas Day, which I'm sorry, folks, how many people paid for tickets and spent half of their Christmas Day traveling to Boston into the Garden to go watch the Celtics, and the Celtics bring on this type of performance? Come on, folks. The Celtics, this was one of their worst losses of the entire season. Now, we've seen other bad losses. The Chicago Bulls one as of late, the Magic loss, really three of the last four losses have been really the worst losses of the season for the Celtics so far. Before that, you could say the Memphis loss, the Celtics did not control that game whatsoever throughout. Other losses earlier in the season, you could say were a little bit better. I know you can say, well, how is a loss better than another? You know, you lost a game. That's just what it is. But in other games, the Celtics had leads and they just couldn't quite finish it out. The other team came back. The Celtics played egregiously down the stretch and they couldn't pull out a game. The most notable example being the Cleveland game at the beginning of the month, December 1st, of course, marking the first December game where now the Celtics are 6-5 in December, playing closer to 500 ball than really dominant basketball at this point in time. But these last couple of games, the Celtics are creating lead trackers that we always look at every post game that are not familiar for the Celtics team. They're not controlling the game. They're not leading throughout. They're not just, oh, we fumbled the game at the end. Oh, we let another team come back. That's kind of what happened in Orlando. But against Chicago, fourth quarter avalanche. Orlando, too, really, fourth quarter avalanche. It's Philadelphia 76ers, fourth quarter avalanche. And the Celtics last year, we were talking about it at this point in the season. Oh, the third quarter Celtics, can they get it going? This year, all of a sudden, we're starting to talk about the beginning of the fourth quarter for the Celtics. For some reason, the Celtics are just not turning up their intensity early in the fourth quarter. And meanwhile, their opponent, they're the ones turning up the intensity. And the Celtics, what's really bothersome about this Celtics team right now is the fact they've won a championship. They just won a championship last June. We all saw it. They were the most dominant team in the NBA. Yet they come into this season. A lot of people are speculating, oh, they might have more motivation than ever. The Celtics might have more motivation than they had last season because they just won the championship. Their entire team was disrespected amongst the historical rankings in the offseason. Jason Tatum was disrespected at the Olympics. Jaylen Brown was disrespected. The finals MVP was disrespected by being left off of the Olympic roster. And we were thinking, oh, this Celtics team is going to come into this season, the 24-25 season, they're going to be more motivated than ever. Well, that looked to be the case early on in the season because the Celtics, they came out, they almost set the 3-point record against the New York Knicks on opening night at the Garden. Yet, since really October, November, really this December, you look at the record in December, 6-5 right now. 6-5. The Celtics, they're turning a bad corner. They're turning a corner we don't want to see. They're not turning a corner towards dominance. We thought, maybe that could be the case against the Chicago Bulls on Saturday last week. Yet now, 3 of the last 4 against really inferior opponents. And this Sixers team, I want to say, was actually the best opponent they faced. If you want to take anything, a silver lining out of this game, the Sixers, they're not as bad of a team as they were earlier in the season. Yet, still, the Celtics at this point in the season, they're losing to opponents in which they should not lose to. And last year, the Celtics didn't pick up their 8th loss until mid-January. It's Christmas, folks, and the Celtics are now 22-8, which I understand. The Celtics, you can't worry about them too much because they still have a good record. They're still going to be in a battle for the number 1 seed. They're still considered the best team in the league. But what we're seeing out of the Celtics right now, you don't want to hit the panic button. You don't want to hit the panic button whatsoever. There's still a lot of season left. We're only at Christmas. But there are some concerns within the Celtics team right now that have to be, Rob always talks about it when we're on this post game, has to be highlighted. It has to be highlighted. And really, one of those is the defensive lapses the Celtics are going through right now. The entire team looks like they are just playing through the emotions. And that is not how you can win basketball games in this league, especially when you're the defending champs and everybody is giving you your best shot or their best shot on any given night. Every single team coming into the Garden and every single team the Celtics face on the road, they look at the Celtics now as the Golden State Warriors of old. The Golden State Warriors, if anybody remembers from last decade, with Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Kevin Durant, of course, everybody looked at the Warriors as their biggest game on the schedule because, oh my goodness, this juggernaut of a dynasty is coming into our house and we have to win this game. And if we win this game, we're going to be given major credit for it. We just beat the juggernaut Warriors. You think about the 18-19 Celtics, that team was stumbling all over the place. And what happened? They went out to San Francisco, or rather, Oakland at the time. The Warriors were still in Oracle at that point. So they went out to Oakland, right? The Warriors in San Francisco now, flipped across the bay. The Celtics were stumbling around all that season. In March, they went out to Oakland and they played a phenomenal game against the Golden State Warriors when the Warriors had, of course, Kevin Durant. They even had DeMarcus Cousins on that team. I understand he was an all-star at that point, but he was out there as well. And the Celtics, it almost seemed like, oh, look at the Celtics. They're about to turn the corner here. They're about to go on a run. That's eventually not what happened. But you can see how that narrative forms within teams and even gives teams a certain credibility or a certain confidence going ahead when you beat the best team in the NBA. And that's what the Celtics still are right now, is they're the best constructed team in the NBA. But the fact of the matter is, they're not playing like it. And when everybody comes into the Celtics house and when everybody the Celtics face on the road is giving the Celtics their best shot, the Boston Celtics cannot be playing in the ways that they're playing right now, whether it's defensively, whether it's offensively, just going through the motions, really not looking like a collective unit whatsoever. The communication issues are really confusing at this point in time, whether it's with the lineups, whether it's whoever's out on the floor, within the lineups, between each other. The Celtics cannot be playing in this manner right now if they want to go out and defeat any team in the NBA, because even teams like the Washington Wizards, yeah, we're talking about, oh, and again, gave Randy his flowers. We'll pull out the other flower. See, wait, let's do it. We gave Randy his flowers, right? We gave Randy his flowers the other week because me and Rob came on here and talked about, oh, the Washington Wizards game is just a nothing game. We still won by 14 points, but let's face it, the Washington Wizards, they're no competition to the Boston Celtics. And still, the Washington Wizards really aren't. But the Celtics only won that game by 14. And for most of the game, the Celtics were only up by 10 when you really felt like this could be a 20, 25 point, 30-point lead, the Celtics, if they really wanted to hit the throttle and go and really defeat the Wizards. The Celtics are good enough to do that. Yet, they didn't do that in that game. And throughout the game, the Celtics didn't assert themselves in the way everybody thought. And Randy came on to this post-game show and he said, look, okay win, 14-point win, that's fine. But the Celtics did not play well enough for the NBA competitional sphere. They didn't. And who they're going to face. And me and Rob kind of brushed it off. But ever since that game, look what's happened. 3 of the last 4, all losses for the Boston Celtics. 3 of the last 4 to Chicago, to an Orlando team without Banchero and Franz Wagner and even Mo Wagner now. And now to the Philadelphia 76ers, who most of us, this is the first matchup between the Celtics and the Sixers this season. We were laughing at the Sixers for the first 2.5 months of the season. And yes, no Joel Embiid, no Paul George. Everybody was in and out of the lineup. Jared McCain was their best player for a couple of weeks, and now he's maybe out for the season with a knee injury. Yet, this game on Christmas in the national spotlight, while everybody's watching at home, one of the highest rated Christmas Day games, the Celtics come out and drop a complete dud. And I want to point this out too. 4-point game. And I understand people will make the point, oh, well, the Celtics, most of their losses, they're 4 points, they're 5 points, they're 6 points. The Celtics aren't exactly getting blown out. And that is somewhat of a silver lining here. The Celtics are not a team that's ever really blown out. They're always in a game. But the problem here is the Celtics, they keep digging themselves holes in which they need to climb out of. And this 4-point loss right here really didn't feel like a 4-point loss. It felt like a 15-point loss for the Boston Celtics relative to the Boston Celtics standard. I mean, you really look at this game, the Celtics, that lead tracker we showed earlier, they were down 15 plus in this game multiple times, whether it was early in the second quarter, throughout the second quarter, before halftime. Into the third quarter, the Celtics were able to mount a comeback. But then the fourth quarter, the Philadelphia 76ers, 21-6 run. And you even look at the quarterly scores, right? The Philadelphia 76ers, 36 points in the second quarter. Yet, in the third quarter, the Philadelphia 76ers dropped 16 points. And we look at the Celtics and go, oh, look, that's how we want to play. We're taking the lead, we're hitting shots, we're executing offensively, and defensively, the Celtics are getting after it. Yet, in the fourth quarter, turns the complete other way. 36 points for the Philadelphia 76ers in the fourth quarter. It went right back to where it was in the second quarter for the Philadelphia 76ers. The Celtics played a good third quarter. Yet that was the only good quarter they played throughout the game. And that's what we're seeing from this Boston Celtics team right now, is that they're not putting together consistent games. There's moments of excellence, like that third quarter where they took the lead in this game, and we thought, oh, here come the Boston Celtics. Yet for the majority of games, the Celtics are not playing their brand of basketball. They're not playing with the intensity of other teams who are bringing it to the Boston Celtics. Defensively, rotations are a complete mess right now, and we're actually going to get into it with some film breakdowns later in this live. I know we had them last year. We're going to bring them back for Christmas because we need to, and they're all going to be in the fourth quarter, by the way. Other than that, offensively, the Celtics, we talked about it on this post game multiple times this year already. What is going on with the offense right now? Last year, it feels like everybody was eating off of each other's plate. And not in a nasty way, but in a good way where it's, oh, here, you take a little bit of this. Oh, here, you take a little bit of this. Oh, here, you take a little bit of this. Every Celtic was sharing the load with one another. And this year, it just feels like, oh, Jason Tatum, he's taking over everything. And when Jason Tatum isn't off the floor, the Celtics struggle mightily. And meanwhile, we have to rely on other guys such as Peyton Pritchard to have a good game. When last year, Peyton Pritchard having a good game or not was not very indicative of where the Celtics were going to go within a game. The Celtics were dominating every game, and if you got a good game out of Pritchard, Celtics were going way ahead of the competition because, oh, look, Pritchard. Oh, look, Hauser off the bench. They're going insane. And you're getting extra contributions when Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're both playing solidly. Derek White, Drew Holiday, one of them, They were always scoring 20 plus points last year. Kristaps Porzingis, in a major way, last year was playing excellent. Yet this year, you just don't see that from this Boston Celtics team. They're leaning on major points. If it's really a do or die Celtics team, it's either this player is playing well or he's not, and if he's not playing well, we're going to lose. That's basically the Jason Tatum, Peyton Pritchard formula right now. Peyton Pritchard doesn't provide for the bench. The bench doesn't produce anything. The Celtics, they struggle winning. If Jason Tatum is off the floor, the Celtics can't produce anything. They struggle winning. That's what's happening with the Celtics team right now. And I should mention this point real quick. Kristaps Porzingis did go out at halftime of this game. All right. Kristaps Porzingis went out with an ankle roll, and we all saw it on the broadcast. Didn't look all that great. But Kristaps Porzingis did go out in the game, and Kristaps Porzingis did not play in the second half. So you could factor that in for the Celtics in a sense, where you go, look, we're playing Joel Embiid, we're playing another All-Star big in the NBA. Kristaps Porzingis did not play in the second half, and secondarily, what also needs to be mentioned, we're going further into this post-game segment, Drew Holiday did not play in this game either. So you kind of look at it and go, okay, some silver lining here, or I would say let's put a pin in this. Let's highlight it, right? Drew Holiday didn't play in this game. Kristaps Porzingis didn't play in the second half. So two of the major Celtics additions from last year did not play in this game in the second half at all, and one of them played in the first half. So there's some of that for the Celtics. I understand people make the excuse for that, yet the Celtics elsewhere still didn't play all that well. They really didn't. But I do want to highlight one player, though, and that is, of course, our SeatGeek player of the game, Mr. Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum, now, this was not a consistent game all the way throughout for Jason Tatum. That has to be mentioned right now because, let's face it, folks, we give out our flowers every single game. We give out our player of the game. And Jason Tatum, you see, good stat line on the night, 32 points, 15 rebounds, 4 assists. One steal, one block. We, of course, call it stocks here on the Celtics Talk Weekly postgame show. Shot fairly efficiently, 11 of 20 from the floor and 4 of 8 from 3. And we kind of talked about this already going into this segment, where if Jason Tatum is producing offensively, the Celtics, they can really get ahead of opponents. Yet when Jason Tatum is not producing or on the bench, that's when the Celtics can struggle. And we saw that in this game once again. Now, Jason Tatum was not consistent throughout the entirety of the game, but he was really the main focal point for the Celtics during their moments in which they came back, particularly in that third quarter and late in the fourth quarter. You wish, of course, the Celtics didn't have to have those moments where Jason Tatum has to turn up the intensity and the team needs to dig themselves out of a hole. But when those moments came, it was Jason Tatum really leading the charge. And that is, of course, why Jason Tatum is our SeatGeek player spotlight or player of the game tonight on Christmas. So Jason Tatum, you see there in the little Santa hat. Nice little graphic here on Christmas. Unfortunately, the Celtics weren't able to pull out the win, but Jason Tatum, I would say tonight, he sort of, kind of, maybe furthered his MVP argument to some degree. Last game, Jason Tatum did not play in Orlando against the Orlando Magic on Monday, but the game before that on Saturday, Jason Tatum 43-point triple double against the Chicago Bulls, completely dominant. And then he comes out after one game's worth of rest and really 3 days worth of rest. And he does this 32 points, 15 rebounds. Like I said, wasn't consistent throughout the entirety of the game, but still was able to get his stats and was still extremely important to the Celtics squad during the comeback moments. So, of course, Jason Tatum, our SeatGeek player spotlight on Christmas. So congratulations to Jason Tatum, of course, for furthering the MVP argument. But again, back on the point right now, the Celtics not being able to pull out the win. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I'm going to highlight those two players real quick because Jason Tatum, of course, our player spotlight tonight, and Jaylen Brown, almost said the wrong player stat line here, but Jaylen Brown, 23 points, 10 of 23 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3, and of course, 3 steals, 2 rebounds for Jaylen Brown. Now, Jaylen Brown was asleep. He was not really involved in this game the way we thought that he should have been in the first half, or rather the way that he can be in the first half because Jaylen Brown really in the first half was just horrendous, horrendous. 1 of 8 from the floor in the first half, and then in that third quarter, though, when the Celtics were able to come back, that is the Jaylen Brown we want to see more often. And for some reason, this game sort of epitomized the JB experience this year, where all right, you get a bad first half from Jaylen Brown, but the second half, he's actually coming out in a more dominant force in that second half. And that's been really just long stretches of the season so far for Jaylen Brown, where, ooh, in this game, doesn't look great. Doesn't really look great for half the game, doesn't look great for most of the game. Jaylen Brown struggling from the floor, not putting up an efficient stat line. Yet you see in Orlando, what did he do in Orlando? 35 points, lit up the Magic, and was really one of the only Celtics exerting the energy and intensity the team needed throughout that game. And I'll say in this game, the Celtics needed more of Tatum and Brown throughout the game. I know Jason Tatum, he's on the top of the screen right now. We just praised him for winning player of the game. And I'll highlight this. Brown and Tatum were very important in the moments in which the Celtics came back in this game. They were. So that's why you have to give them some praise tonight. Yet, if Tatum and Brown were more consistent throughout this game, despite their all right stat lines at the end of the night, Brown 10 of 23, 3 of 6 from 3, and he started out the game 1 of 8. So if you really do the math there, just super, super efficient there in the second half for Jaylen Brown. And Tatum, of course, 32 points on 11 of 20 shooting. Despite the okay stat lines, Tatum and Brown were not there throughout the entirety of the game. Again, going through the motions a little bit. And it's not as if this is abnormal for Tatum and Brown because we've seen this from them before. And I would say superstars, they get a little bit more leeway in terms of their, oh, they're on or they're off because of how much responsibility superstars harbor. But in this game, on national TV, in front of the home crowd against the Philadelphia 76ers, you expect a little bit more out of Tatum and Brown in terms of their intensity level, particularly early in the game. Okay, first quarter, right out of the jump. That's really where I'm looking at here because late in the game, we saw Jason Tatum was getting after it. Late in the game, we saw Jaylen Brown was getting after it. And even in the second half, particularly for Jaylen Brown, getting after it on the floor. Came up with that big steal at the end that almost flipped the game on its head entirely when the Celtics were making that big run to dig themselves out of the hole. Yet early in the game, both looked disengaged. And what happened? 15-point lead for the Philadelphia 76ers, turnovers galore, and the defense just looks utterly atrocious for the Boston Celtics. So Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they are the tone setters for this team. And yes, they got their stats tonight, but we want to see them be that assertive force early in the game because that's what was really different about last year's Celtics team, 23-24, than Celtics teams of the past with Tatum and Brown. We talked about in 21-22 and 20 and 21 and even 19-20 and even all the way back to 18-19 when it was more of Kyrie's team, right? And Gordon Hayward's team, although he didn't have a great season that year. But those were the focal point all-star players on that team. Talked about it all the way back on that season. The Celtics could not start games out hot. For some reason, the Celtics would just kind of let their team, not their team, their opponent, right, settle into a game while the Celtics eventually ramped up into the force in which we expected them to be. Last year's Celtics team was really the first Celtics team that we saw where, oh my goodness, this Celtics team is coming out and they're dominating everybody. They're dominating everybody from the jump. And that's when you saw the lead tracker go early on and then throughout the game. And that's what was very impressive about last year's Celtics team is that they really set that tone early and then throughout the game they built on it. Yet this year's Celtics team, and it really focuses in on Tatum and Brown because they are the superstar focal points on the Celtics team. It hasn't been that way at all. It really hasn't. And we've seen moments, yes, where the Celtics can go out there and grab big leads or the Celtics start okay in a game. And I want to say that right now. Most of their starts this year have not been dominant. If they have a good start, it's just been an okay start. Yet, throughout the game, they're not building upon their good starts. The Celtics are not building upon their good starts, and their good starts are coming few and far between. We even think about the Wizards game. The Wizards had a 15-7 lead on the Celtics in that game. And what's most frustrating about this is how many times did we come on post game last year? And it was kind of boring because we were talking about, oh, Celtics led wire to wire. The other team never had a lead. Wire to wire, Celtics win. Oh, yep, happened again. Wire to wire, Celtics win. This year, yeah, we're seeing some good lead trackers from the Celtics in terms of them building upon it throughout the game. You think about the Pistons game, you think about the Bulls game. Don't get me wrong, 22-8, you're going to have some good wins in there for the Celtics. Yet, throughout those 22 wins and even the 8 losses, we're seeing the Celtics early in the game, they're struggling to grab a lead. They're letting other teams go out in front and grab a lead on them, and they're digging themselves out of a hole. And even in games where you look at it and go, oh, the Celtics won by 10 or 15, they were down 10 early in the game. And early in the game, yes, that's when you can really dig yourself out of a hole because you have a ton of possessions after the first quarter. Yet the Celtics, if they're establishing themselves and setting the tone, particularly Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, they're coming out with a hunger, with a force. They don't have to dig themselves out of that hole. They can only add on to that. And that's what we saw last year is they came out with that force, they came out with that hunger. The Celtics established their leads, and throughout the game, they were able to build on it. This year, feels like the Celtics are more focused on coming back into games. They establish themselves, and then they kind of taper off a little bit later in games when they think they have it in the bag. And that's what's a little concerning about the Celtics team right now is because you're looking at what looks like a championship hangover. We didn't want to say anything about it at the beginning of the season because there was a portion of the season, particularly at the beginning, where we thought, okay, this team looks motivated. They're coming in from last season. They want to go back to the finals. They're mad about what happened over the summer, whether it was the disrespect with the entire team or the Olympics or whatever it was. We're looking at a Celtics team in which is motivated coming out of the gates. Yet, since being motivated coming out of the gates, the Celtics have looked just complacent the entirety of December. Really, 6-5 in December. That's not going to do it, folks. That's a five. That's nearly a 500 record. The Celtics lose against the Indiana Pacers the next game. We'll play the Pacers not back to back, but we'll play them twice in a row. The Pacers. We're kind of weird schedule right now. We just play the Bulls, Magic, Sixers, Pacers, Pacers. A little bit of a weird stretch here after playing 2 games in 11 days after a loss. So definitely a weird schedule here in December. Yet right now, where the Celtics are, if they lose that next game to the Pacers, they're 6-6 in 12 games. 6-6. That is not where we expect the Celtics team to be whatsoever. We expect the Celtics team to be dominant, and that really highlights the complacency of the Celtics team in December. And I really cast a light on it last post game where I thought, I said, here's what I think about the Celtics team in terms of their motivation right now and why this is happening. You look at the calendar of the entire year, right, for the Celtics. First, let's go all the way back to the beginning of the 23-24 season. Okay. So last year at the beginning, coming into that season, the Celtics clear motivation to go out and play. Couple reasons why. They lose to an inferior Miami Heat team who's an 8 seed in the Eastern Conference Finals. They come back from 3-0. They mount the comeback. It's 3-3 in the series. They have home court advantage. They play game 7 on their home floor. Jason Tatum rolls his ankle, and it just feels like that's the end of the game. They're blown out in game 7 by the Miami Heat, and they have to watch the Miami Heat play a series against the Denver Nuggets where the Miami Heat are clearly the inferior opponent against the Nuggets, and the Nuggets go on and win the championship after facing an 8 seed, a 4 seed, a 7 seed, and then an 8 seed again. You never know what happens because before the Nuggets actually make the finals, they only face 8, 4, 7. Everybody loves to praise that Nuggets team, and everybody last year was going, oh, 23, 24 Nuggets, can they go back to back? Very good team. They could have, but you look at the season before, the Nuggets in the Western Conference didn't face anybody before the finals. Really, in terms of seeding, the highest seed they faced was the Phoenix Suns at the 4 seed. And we all thought that Phoenix Suns team, Kevin Durant was new, the last Chris Paul year. They're a little bit of a carcass of their former Phoenix Suns self, the contending roster that we saw in 21 and 22 with the Phoenix Suns. And that was their toughest opponent. If the Celtics make the finals in 2023, you never know what happens between the Nuggets and the Celtics. If the Celtics make the finals, maybe they're finals champions. They go back to back finals appearances, right? 22, 23. So going into the 23-24 season, Marcus Smart's traded, Malcolm Brogdon's traded, Kristaps Porzingis inserted, Drew Holiday inserted. Both of these players highly motivated to go out and prove they can be winners in this portion of their career. Kristaps Porzingis, he's on a horrible Wizards team. Drew Holiday, he's just traded away from the Milwaukee Bucks, who I don't want to say the Bucks didn't want him, but they favored Damian Lillard over him. There's definitely more motivation within Drew Holiday at that point last year at the beginning of the season. Kristaps Porzingis too. He doesn't have a ring yet. Those two guys are added. The Celtics clearly the Milwaukee Bucks. Thank you, Milwaukee, because they create the pathway to the Celtics being the most dominant team in the NBA, and the Celtics know it. Brown and Tatum, they're getting to Eastern Conference Finals. They're even getting to finals in 2022, of course, against the Warriors. They were the better team that year too. The Warriors are just a more experienced team, picked them apart. But last year, coming into the season, the narrative is, can the Celtics get over the hump? Can Kristaps Porzingis win a ring? Can Drew Holiday win another ring with another team? Can Brown and Tatum get over the hump? Can Derek White also be that piece alongside of them? Not a huge narrative with Derek White, but all these players motivated to win either their first or second ring, right? If you're Drew Holiday, your second ring. Now, last season, they came in. The entire team is new. The entire team has a motivational standard they're living up to. And that team goes on a complete tear, wins 64 games in the playoffs. No team it looked like was even close against them. Yeah, the Miami Heat won a game two. Cleveland Cavaliers won a game two. Mavericks won a game three against them. Three losses in the playoffs, 16-3. And if the Celtics do not lose one of those games in the playoffs, if they only go 16-2, right? If they go 16-2 instead of 16-3, they have a top 5 record in terms of winning percentage in NBA history. Unfortunately, the Celtics had to settle for a top 10 record in NBA history last year, which is still pretty good. But the Celtics completely dominated throughout the season. All of those players had motivation to go out and win a ring, and they did. Now, if you look at the calendar, right? The playoffs in May, in April. The Celtics, big hype for that, big motivation for that. We're going through the playoffs. Every playoff run is going to come with motivation. Then they go into the finals. They're playing in the finals for the first time in 2 years. Some players, of course, Drew Holiday, the first time in 3 years. Other players, like Kristaps Porzingis, playing in their first ever NBA finals. A lot of motivation, a lot of hype behind that. Okay. They go out and win the finals, and everything is kumbaya. Greatest moment of the last 10 years for the Celtics, or if not since 2008, of course. After that, the Celtics go on this entire summer run of celebration, and there's narratives built about the team, whether it's good or bad. The team being one of the greatest teams in NBA history, or the team, they didn't have to face anybody. Oh, they don't. Jason Tatum, is he a top 5 NBA player? Oh, Jaylen Brown, should he make the Olympic roster? Blah, 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 blah. The Olympics come around. Tatum, highly motivated to play in the Olympics, doesn't really get a shot. 0 minutes, a couple of times there in the Olympics, and really when he gets minutes, he doesn't really do a ton with them on that team. You think LeBron James demanded the ball, Steph Curry, Devin Booker, Anthony Edwards, and that's why players like Derek White and Drew Holiday, who were also on that Olympic team, they were so important because that Olympic team needed players that could play off ball. Jason Tatum wasn't as good doing that, and that's why he sat on the bench and played minimal minutes. But Jason Tatum, he's motivated from that. Jaylen Brown, he's motivated because the narrative surrounding, oh, this is one of the worst finals MVPs ever. Oh, Jaylen Brown, he should make the Olympic team, blah, 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 blah. Brown and Tatum are motivated over the summer to come back into the season. The Celtics team is motivated as a whole to come back into the season and show everybody, look, we were dominant last year. We're going to be dominant again. And at the beginning of the season, they play the Knicks, who everybody was looking at going, oh, the Knicks, look at the Sixers. Can the Knicks and the Sixers, they're in the East. Can they challenge the Celtics this season? We'll see. They're still early in the season. It's December, still to be determined. The Sixers, of course, beat the Celtics tonight. Celtics whooped the Knicks on opening night. And that opening night, there was a lot of hype around it because here are the rings. Here's the banner going up. And this entire time period for the Celtics, the last year and a half really, is this glorious string of motivation for something, whether it's new team, we're getting over the hump, finals, Olympics, going back into the season, new opponents on the horizon, who people think, oh, the Knicks, the Sixers, they're going to challenge the Celtics. Here we go. Leading to this moment in December right now where the Celtics are 6-5 and look utterly complacent playing teams like the Magic, like the Bulls, like the Sixers, who people have not been paying attention to now for a month. Well, the reason this complacency is happening is because the Celtics are going through the motion because their motivation is running out. I hate to say it, but their motivation looks like it's running out. And hopefully, we think later on in the season, the Celtics will pick that motivation back up because part of the conversation with the Celtics right now, including myself, other analysts around the league, are looking at the Celtics with a little bit of a side eye. A lot of people nationally are going to give them the benefit of the doubt because they're still 22-8, still the second seed. They still won the championship last year. They're still constructively the best team in the NBA. Do not get me wrong about that. The motivation for the Boston Celtics right now, it's not there. It's not there like we saw it at the beginning of this season. It's not there like we saw it in the summer, during the playoffs last year, coming into the 23-24 season. And it's unfortunate because we know how good the Celtics team can be and play when they're at their best. Yet their best is not happening right now because the team is going through the motion. The team entirely, they're not playing as an entire unit. They're not playing their best brand of basketball, both offensively, defensively. Offensively, it looks like a mess right now. It looks like a complete mess. Your turn, my turn. Defensively, the rotations are completely off. And I already mentioned it within this post game. And we'll even get more into it within our film breakdown here because that's really going to be the point of emphasis on the film breakdown is the defensive rotations. They looked awful. I mean, and it's from players you wouldn't expect, like Derek White. I know Drew Holiday didn't play tonight. Kristaps Porzingis didn't play in the second half, but it's from players you think these guys are always on it. These guys are always on their A game. These are guys the Celtics can rely on. No matter who is up and down here, the Celtics are going to be some team, or these players on the Celtics are going to be players in which the Celtics can rely on to bring the intensity, bring their A game, bring the level of consistency in which the Celtics need. And it's coming from players like Derek White right now that you just wouldn't expect that from at all. Now, hitting on some other points here with the Celtics and the Sixers, just a complete mess. I would say Caleb Martin, I haven't even mentioned him in this post-game show yet, and we haven't mentioned a ton of the 76ers outside of the beginning. But Caleb Martin, really? Again? Again. Caleb Martin. And this is the second time in a season and a half. Go back to the 23 conference finals. What is going on with the Celtics leaving Caleb Martin wide open? Is Caleb Martin the most disrespected player in the Celtics locker room ever? They left him wide open, including Gabe Vincent, in the 2023 conference finals. And when we get into our film breakdown here tonight, we're going to see once again the Celtics leaving Caleb Martin wide open. Just completely and utterly wide open Caleb Martin was. And I don't know why the Celtics don't respect him. We saw in 2023 what he did to the Celtics. We see any player's ability now. We talked about with the NBA. If you're a non-shooter, there are not too many positions you're going to be able to fill in the NBA. You're just not. You're going to have to do something else spectacularly to stay on the floor if you cannot shoot. And Caleb Martin, he's a shooter. Okay, why are we leaving him wide open? I don't know why the Celtics decide to continuously disrespect a player like that or any shooter like that. Doesn't matter who you are. If you're facing a shooter in the NBA, you can't leave role player, superstar, whoever. You can't just leave him wide open. And Joe Mazzulla was making the excuse after the game, and I want to get into this after I mention this. Joe Mazzulla is making the excuse, oh, we're caught up in rotation. Oh, yeah, we let a couple slide under our nose. That's not what was happening. Celtics were not getting caught up in rotation. They were miscommunicating on rotations entirely and really picking and choosing, oh, we're going to leave this player open to go cover this player. Oh, we're going to leave Caleb Martin. We're going to go double either Maxey or Martin and leave one of them wide open or leave another player wide open. And the Celtics that's not what they can be doing right now in this portion of the season, because I want to touch on this real quick. We've talked about so many times the Celtics, they need to be forming good habits. We've talked about this more in past seasons with the Celtics when they were not defending a title, when they weren't coming off a championship. Celtics need to be building good habits. A lot of people give the Celtics right now this leeway because of their championship pedigree from last year. We look at the Celtics and go, we know their ability, we know what they can do. They're going to be able to do this in April. They're going to be able to do this in May. Yet, right now, the Celtics are continuously building bad habits, and it's coming on the defensive side of the floor and on the offensive side of the floor, but particularly defensively right now is what I'm most concerned about, because the Celtics have always prided themselves on being this stout, physical, tall, lengthy defensive team. And some of those attributes are still true about the Celtics. However, they're not bringing their physicality, and they're really not building good habits on the defensive end of the floor in terms of communication, their defensive stance, their defensive positioning. These players, I understand how good they can be. Okay, Derek White, Drew Holiday didn't play in this game, but I'm going to mention him. Kristaps Porzingis, Tatum, Brown, Pritchard, even Sam Hauser. We've touched on him in the past. Oh, this this guy, Sam Hauser, he is becoming a little bit better on the defensive end of the floor in terms of particularly his defensive mechanics. Yet, right now, these little things, right? The little thing the Celtics have always prided themselves on are falling by the wayside. They're not doing them at this particular moment in time. And it's showing in a game like this where you allow 36 points in the second quarter, 36 points in the fourth quarter. But the most frustrating thing is the Celtics allow 16 points in the third quarter. And you see, yes, they can do it. The Celtics can do it in certain portions of the game. But they need to be doing it throughout the entirety of the game, all 48 minutes. And that's what the Celtics are not really hitting at right now. I'm kind of dancing around the bush here. I do want to mention Joe Mazzulla real quick before we get into film breakdown, because we're going to get into film breakdown in a second here. But Joe Mazzulla, the reason people, I think, in the past, Joe Mazzulla kind of rubbed them the wrong way. You want to say it like that? The reason Joe Mazzulla rubs people the wrong way is Joe Mazzulla is not always a truth teller in his pressers, in my opinion. Okay? And there's no factual basis for this other than the fact of Joe Mazzulla will say, "Oh, we did this well. We just didn't shoot all that well. We didn't hit at the clip we expected them to be, but we got open shots." Or defensively, "Oh, we're caught up in rotation. We did what we needed to do. Just they hit some tough shots on us, or we were in the spots we needed to be." Yet you'll see in the film that's not true with the Celtics. And the next game they will make adjustments. So I want to say that Joe Mazzulla, he's a great head coach. He really is. He'll make the adjustments that we need to see from the Celtics. We've seen it in the past, whether it was 22-23, he got better in 23-24, specifically later on in the season as the season got harder. Of course, for the Celtics into the playoffs, the Celtics made adjustments. So you have to say Joe Mazzulla is a good head coach. But in the pressers, he always states to the public that there are not problems when there clearly are problems. And he's doing an okay job at hiding and not publicly stating things out to the public that we saw in the past from guys like Ime Udoka. The one season Ime Udoka was in Boston, he would thrash our team, the Celtics, in the media. He would thrash them, and that was part of his coaching mechanism. It was a mechanism of coaching for him, calling guys out in the media, calling them out publicly, and then going and making that into a motivational component for the team to go out and execute the next game. Joe Mazzulla is a little bit different from that standpoint. He'll hide things from the public, go behind the scenes, make the adjustment, and then the Celtics will execute off of what they've done behind the scenes. And the media, you'll never know that or have an indication of it if you see him at the podium. You just won't. And that's what's interesting about Joe Mazzulla. And I think that's what rubs people the wrong way about Joe Mazzulla, is that he'll just kind of brush off these things to the public and for the media, because the media, I know we're media here, but we're not exactly the ones asking questions when they're at the podium. Some of the questions are a little ridiculous. Some of the questions, it feels like, are a little tone deaf or out of touch or just trying to poke at, like, can I get a narrative out of this? So I understand Joe Mazzulla's approach just a little bit. Clearly not an enjoyer of the media or his press conferences. He's a very serious guy at his pressers. Kind of a character, but well, like, kind of a serious personality in a sense. Really a general. The Celtics, I like that about a head coach. He is kind of this like general type of personality where he is leading his squad and he's really in house about everything that he and his squad goes through, and you'll see the moments in which Joe Mazzulla's personality really comes out, whether he's on court or you'll see practice film where he's a little bit more engaged than you'll see him in his press conferences with the media and what he suggests to the media. But I think that rubs people a little bit the wrong way because Joe Mazzulla, he's not up front to the media entirely, but I think behind the scenes he's very upfront with his entire Celtics team. And that's what I think you got to respect about Joe Mazzulla in the end, despite the media not always getting what they want out of him and getting these kind of funny answers from time to time. Joe Mazzulla, he's good with his squad behind the scenes in terms of making adjustments and being the head coach the Celtics need. So, belief in Joe Mazzulla, but I did want to touch on that point because this was one of those games where the Celtics, we're going to get into film breakdown here. We're going to see on the film breakdown that the Celtics, there were some problems in this game that were not highlighted really in the presser afterwards, the press conference, yet these are some of the bad habits the Celtics really want to rid themselves of as the season continuously progresses on. Now, going into film breakdown here, we did this last season, and I love doing film breakdown. This season, we haven't done it as much. It's kind of a hassle, and since it's Christmas, giving the viewers a gift here, and we had time because if anybody's actually watching live here, they'll know it's a little bit farther in time after the game than we're used to for post game, and we're going solo show here, so got to fill some time. Even though I've already filled 53 minutes on this show, still got to fill more time. What's not to fill time, but an extra player breakdown or play breakdown or really film breakdown session that we saw last year, bringing it back out here. But here we go into film breakdown. This is going to put an emphasis on the Celtics' lack of ability rotating defensively in the fourth quarter, particularly during the Philadelphia 76ers 21-6 run to start the fourth quarter, and even further on in the fourth quarter when the Celtics were trying to mount their comeback into the game after going down a bunch of points in the fourth quarter, after being tied going into the fourth. Celtics were trying to mount their comeback, and they just couldn't make enough stops and convert offensively in order to get over the hill. But this film breakdown will, of course, highlight all of what I was just talking about. But here, let's get into it, folks. I'm kind of debating. Should we take the ticker off the screen? I don't know. Let's do it. We gotta Got to remind me to put it back up before we go back to the graphics here. Okay, now this is what I'm a little bit confused about for the Boston Celtics during this portion of the game. Now, Joel Embiid is not in the game. You have to look at your personnel out on the floor at this point. I have no idea why Luke Cornett is in the game right now. I really don't. Luke Cornett, we've given him his flowers. He can be a solid player for the Celtics. We've talked graciously about Luke Cornett this season, yet look who's on the floor for the Philadelphia 76ers. Their biggest player right now is Gershon Yabusele, the dancing bear, former Celtic, in the corner there, who Jason Tatum's on. And then after that, you have Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, Tyrese Maxey, and Reggie Jackson. You have three guards out there, two forwards. One's a bigger forward, but you don't really have a big man out there whatsoever for the Sixers. And look at where they're all standing, out on the three-point line. And guess who is known for not being a perimeter-oriented defender? You'd be correct. That'd be Luke Cornett, who right now you see the Sixers get the mismatch on him, and Tyrese Maxey is just running downhill at Luke Cornett. Complete and utter mismatch at this point in the game, and it really highlights the personnel issue the Celtics have within this stretch of the game when the Sixers went on their run. Why is Luke Cornett on the floor? Love Luke Cornett, but he is not the matchup for when you have two forwards, a little bit bigger forward in Yabusele, who's not a true big, and three guards out there who are really playing five out. for the Sixers right now, but you'll see Maxey just runs right around Luke Cornett in this segment right here. And look at that. This right here is what the Celtics were struggling at early in the fourth quarter and throughout this game. This is what the Celtics want to achieve themselves on the offensive end of the floor. Yet the Philadelphia 76ers, particularly Tyrese Maxey at this point in the game, they were doing it a lot better than the Celtics. Look at Tyrese Maxey and that lane he has in front of him, right down to the paint. And look at all the eyes on him. Jason Tatum's looking at him. Derek White's looking at him. Peyton Pritchard, Jaylen Brown, they're all collapsing towards him. And Luke Cornett, of course, he's just completely beat out on the perimeter right now, cannot stay in front of Tyrese Maxey, who is just on another one on Christmas Day, thanks to Trendon Watford, he said after the game. But you watch this right here, or you look at this right here, rather. Tyrese Maxey, this open lane, the defense is collapsing, and look who's open on the perimeter. You have Caleb Martin wide open. You have an option of Reggie Jackson open. You even have an option of Kyle Lowry open with all three of those defenders, and really all five defenders right now looking at Tyrese Maxey streaking down the lane or about to streak down the lane. All five are looking to collapse on Tyrese Maxey, and they're not paying attention to their guys right now. Jason Tatum's staying home, but Jaylen Brown's collapsing. Pritchard's collapsing. Those are really the two players really collapsing here. And I will say Derek White, the way he's standing right now, is not in a good position whether he is collapsing or recovering on this play. And what this results in is bam. Look at this. Look at this right here. Maxey penetrating the paint. Jaylen Brown, Pritchard collapsing now. Luke Cornett, he's recovering and he's going to go rotate over to Reggie Jackson. But right now, this is what was not going well for the Celtics right here in this play. We're going to break it down. What needs to happen in order for this to be a success on the defensive end of the floor? The Celtics have already been broken down, okay? Two players collapse on Maxey, Cornett beat down on the perimeter. But in good rotational, in good rotations, right? If you are rotating well, this can still be a stop for the Celtics, because what needs to happen is Derek White, he needs to be sprinting out to Caleb Martin. Tatum, he needs to be sprinting out to Kyle Lowry. And then Brown, he needs to be sprinting over to Gershon Yabusele. Then you have all five guys covered. You have Yabusele covered in the corner for the skip pass. If it goes over to Kyle Lowry, if it goes over to Yabusele, you have Yabusele covered in the corner. You have Tatum covering Kyle Lowry on the wing. And you have Derek White contesting the three, if not the pass, from Caleb Martin. You have Pritchard on Maxey, and you still have a mismatch. This is, again, where I call out the Luke Cornett personnel issue here. You have Luke Cornett on Reggie Jackson on the corner. You still have him covered, but still a mismatch there. But what happens here is Derek White, my goodness, folks, Derek White, this is bad defensive rotation right here. This is just bad. Derek White, yeah, I'm just going to leave Caleb Martin wide open because I'm going to go cover Kyle Lowry instead. And sometimes these decisions are made, they're going to be made off of who's the better three-point shooter. But let's face it, folks, Caleb Martin was destroying the Celtics all night long. And he had a season high in this game and a career high with the Sixers in this game. And Derek White, he decides, I'm going to go cover Kyle Lowry. Defensive rotations aren't crisp. You have two players on Tyrese Maxey in the lane still. Tatum doesn't rotate over. And who's left wide open for three? Caleb Martin. This is a wide open three-point shot. There's no other analysis to this. This is wide open. This is what you do not want to be giving up in the NBA. And this is just because of how the Celtics are, number one, matching up with their personnel, and number two, how they're rotating defensively. That's the issue here. Wide open three for Caleb Martin. It's as easy as this. There's no other grand equation other than this is a wide open shot. And of course, we move on here, which, let's see. I think we got double images in here, so let's be careful not to go off screen. But all right, there we go. Yeah, wide open three-point shot for Caleb Martin. We had another tile there. But that's wide open. I mean, come on, folks. What? How are you doing this if you're the Boston Celtics? A player who is destroying you all game. And look at the score, I will mention at this point in time, 84-82 for the Boston Celtics with 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. The Celtics aren't out of this game and are actually controlling this game right now with the lead. They were not holding a lead for most of this game. Yet they have a lead with 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and this is what you're coming up with defensively? Come on now. Come on. Here we go. We on to our next segment. This is going to be a high screen with Tyrese Maxey at the top of the key, again highlighting the personnel issue out here. Cornette still out on the floor. This is a minute later in the game, and now the Philadelphia 76ers have an 87-84 lead. Yabusele in the corner with Tatum on him, Pritchard on Jackson, Brown on Kyle Lowry, and now you have this. This is where it just makes no sense with personnel. Who is Luke Cornette supposed to be guarding in this situation, folks? Who is he supposed to be guarding? Right now, he's on Caleb Martin. Caleb Martin's going to set a high screen for Tyrese Maxey almost at the logo here, who Tyrese Maxey is being defended by Derek White in this particular instance. And Cornette, what exactly, who exactly is supposed to be on right now? And this is what, there's a problem with the Celtics right here in terms of the personnel matchup. And I think that's really what the biggest issue is on this particular play, but just in this particular stretch as well. Tyrese Maxey goes downhill on this, and look how much space Tyrese Maxey has to operate here. And at this point, Tyrese Maxey's on a heater. He has too much space to decide what he wants to do on this particular play right here. Because we see Tyrese Maxey, quick decision maker. Look how low Cornette drops into the paint to take away that drive, because Tyrese Maxey, who's really driving past the Celtics all night, but Tyrese Maxey decides he's going to take a sidestep, and that's a fairly open three. But I'll also point out on this given play, he has Caleb Martin wide open yet again. Now, Caleb Martin's really deep right now, but if he takes a couple steps forward, he's going to be wide open, and Cornette is not going to be in the best of position to go out there and contest. And this could be a situation where you have Brown go up and contest, you have Pritchard switch onto Kyle Lowry, and you have Cornette go and cover Reggie Jackson in the corner. But just as you're saying all these names, or as I'm saying all these names, it again does not make much sense as to why Luke Cornette is out on the floor at this given point in time. And this is where the Celtics breakdown really begins. Too much space for Tyrese Maxey to operate, too many options for the Philadelphia 76ers here. Going further, another high screen for Maxey at the top of the key from Reggie Jackson this time. And you have Cornette on the guy in which you want him on in the corner right now, Yabusele. Again, Yabusele, though, more of a perimeter-oriented big, not a true big whatsoever, and more of a forward. Cornette still out on the floor, Tatum on Caleb Martin, Derek White on Kyle Lowry. And this is where the Celtics, again, with the communicational breakdown and just not good defensive positioning whatsoever, they have to communicate this switch. Right here, this is where you want to switch Sam Hauser onto Tyrese Maxey, and you want Pritchard to go and take Reggie Jackson. But guess what happens here? Sam Hauser is not in a great position to go and switch, because you see Tyrese Maxey, he is in full force run. He is in full running mode, sprinting mode towards the paint, while Sam Hauser, he's just not in a good position to go and stop ball right here. And what else do you have? You have Peyton Pritchard chasing him from behind. They don't switch this. They actually both go and cover Maxey. They don't switch it at all. Now, Sam Hauser recovers here a little bit better, gets in front of the ball here. But look at what you have on this play. Look at what you have. Reggie Jackson streaking behind the play, wide open. This should be a switch. This should be Pritchard on Reggie Jackson right now, not two guys on Tyrese Maxey, because what happens is, despite having two players on Tyrese Maxey, and even Sam Hauser looking like he has all right position to stop ball here, which he really isn't in that great a defensive stance. Really look at his feet. Look how close together Sam Hauser's feet are right here, and how angled Tyrese Maxey is towards the rim. Maxey has more of the leverage here in this situation. But with two guys on Tyrese Maxey and even one player in front of him being Sam Hauser, look what happens. Just allowing Tyrese Maxey into the paint. That's an open floater right there for Tyrese Maxey. Hauser doesn't have the same verticality as him, lets him deep into the paint. Maxey, he's in rhythm. And if he doesn't want to take the shot, guess who's wide open? Reggie Jackson at the top of the key. And even more so here, look at where Derek White is positioned on this play. Tyrese Maxey, because he was able to drive so deep into the lane here, Derek White has to pay attention to Tyrese Maxey, and that really kind of opens up Caleb Martin again in the corner. That will force the Celtics to rotate. Now, Tatum's standing there as well, so he's probably not going to pass over there. But you even look, this is where the defense is collapse for the Celtics. And this is where players can really, just in general, whether you're looking at the Celtics or any other team, this is why players and teams want to penetrate the paint. Look at the defensive eyes on Tyrese Maxey right now. Tatum focused on Maxey, Pritchard on Maxey, Sam Hauser guarding Maxey, Derek White looking at Maxey, Cornette looking at Maxey. Who are they not looking at? Their defensive matchups. And it's supposed to be you, me, ball, right? They're supposed to be in between, but everybody is staring at Tyrese Maxey because they're concerned about him penetrating the paint and getting a layup. And right here, Sam Hauser and Peyton Pritchard, despite both being on Maxey, they're supposed to really switch at the top of the key here. One's supposed to be on Jackson, the other on Maxey. Not a clean switch whatsoever. They didn't even switch it. Maxey able to penetrate the paint and leaves the Sixers again with options, but Maxey with a fairly easy bucket right here. Fairly easy for how in rhythm he was throughout the night. Moving on again with Maxey. Now, we got to harp on it. Now, right now, the Sixers. Remember when the Celtics were up 2? Well, here they are, down 8. 3 minutes later, not even 3 minutes later at this point, about 2.5 minutes later, Tyrese Maxey running downhill at Luke Cornette, and this is what's very confusing. So you have Pritchard, he's being screened at the top of the, sort of at the wing here. You have Pritchard at the top of the wing. He's screened by Kyle Lowry. So you have right now Kyle Lowry and Luke Cornette, they're attached to each other. Yet when Kyle Lowry goes to screen for Maxey, it switches Cornette onto Maxey, and Pritchard, he's going to have to take over Kyle Lowry. But this is what's so confusing about Cornette being on the floor at this point in time. Who is he supposed to be guarding? It's the same personnel. I've mentioned this a million times already, this film breakdown. But again, with the personnel on the floor for the Celtics, it would be better if the Celtics threw out another forward or another guard instead of Cornette within this situation, because Maxey and Lowry. Now, Lowry's not the fastest guard at this point in his career, but they're both faster, more shifty than Cornette, and Cornette is having to cover one of these guys, whether it's Maxey and Lowry. And we'll see right here, Maxey takes it really to the top of the key here, inside the three-point arc, draws over Derek White, Peyton Pritchard still following him, Cornette still guarding the paint in front of him, and look, 2 options. You either have a swing over to Caleb Martin because Derek White is shading off of Caleb Martin, and that would probably be contested. Derek White's in an all right position here to stop ball and to also contest that wing 3 if it's kicked over to the wing there. But Maxey adds a little bit of jazz to this. Behind the back pass to Kyle Lowry, who's wide open on the wing, kind of the top of the key wing here. Gives Luke Cornette a pump fake, sidestep, wide open 3. Wide open 3. I mean, how really? We're what, 3 or 4 plays into this play breakdown right now, this film breakdown? How many wide open 3s have we seen already, or wide open 3 opportunities for the 76ers, particularly at the beginning of this fourth quarter? When the Celtics were up 2 to start the fourth quarter, where they were tied and they were up 2 after making the first bucket of the quarter. And now we're looking at wide open 3, wide open 3, wide open 3. Moving on. Here we go. This is where the Celtics, again, giving up too much space, and again, the personnel. So, Cornette, who comes in for Cornette? It's Queta. Queta comes in for Cornette. There are nights in which we do not see Queta or Cornette. And yet, right here, I understand Kristaps Porzingis is out of the lineup at this point in time, but Queta replaces Cornette. And again, the personnel just makes no sense whatsoever. You got this screening action with Yabusele going on at the top of the key here. I believe it's Yabusele and Lowry. And you have Yabusele screening Peyton Pritchard, I believe that's behind Yabusele and Derek White. Derek White, this is where Derek White, I almost wonder now, you can't really see it necessarily on the film here from this angle, but if Derek White is paying attention to the ball, maybe this can be a tip pass. He's not even looking at the ball. He's kind of paying more attention to the action in front of him, which I can understand. But this is where the Celtics, again with the personnel, they replace Cornette with Queta. Doesn't make much sense matching up with who the Sixers have out on the floor. They're just spacing the floor out here. Joel Embiid is not in the game right now. And from this play, Kada, way too much space given to Caleb Martin to go and pull this three with 3.2 seconds left on the shot clock. At this point in time, the Sixers are up 11. We just went through 4.5 minutes of the game in terms of Sixers possessions. It went from Celtics up 2 to now Sixers up 11 in 4.5 minutes. And Caleb Martin, of course, hits this three, which kind of a lucky three, kind of a bank in, but he had that rhythm going for the night, had the rhythm. And what happens? We see Caleb Martin, a lot of space to shoot here. I understand Kada, not exactly the best perimeter defender. If he's going to go out and contest this, he's probably going to get blown by right here. But again, highlighting the Celtics personnel out on the floor, but the space, allowing the Philadelphia 76ers to shoot, particularly players who were on their game, whether it was Tyrese Maxey, Caleb Martin, even Kyle Lowry in the fourth quarter. Too much space to pull up right here. Next play, this is one of the more egregious plays of the entire fourth quarter of the night. My goodness, folks, this one you have Tyrese Maxey doubled right here by Derek White and Peyton Pritchard. That's all fine and good. You want to stop Tyrese Maxey from destroying you on the floor. I understand that. But right here, this defensive rotation as we go into this is completely horrendous by Derek White. And Derek White, I want to highlight as a player, not for something good, but for something, I don't want to say that's concerning, but something we're just really not used to seeing out of Derek White whatsoever. Derek White is one of those players we think he is going to be consistently on his game, giving the Celtics his A game. He is going to be giving the Celtics what they need on both ends of the floor, playing in the background of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. He is going to be that extra piece who last year we thought, oh, could he even be an all-star because of what he was doing, both offensively, attacking the basket, and defensively, all of the little things we talk about, whether on-ball defense or rotational defense. Right here, Derek White, he is supposed to be, here's what's happening. Yabusele is cutting down towards the paint. Keita has to pick up Yabusele, so this is not a wide open layup in the paint. So, of course, with Tyrese Maxey doubled at the top of the key here, wanting to pass out of this double team, who does that leave wide open? Caleb Martin. And we see right here, here's the next screenshot. I should have really explained it right here. You see Yabusele cutting more down towards the basket right here. Keita taking Yabusele. White, he sees the pass. He's in good position right now to go over and contest this potential shot or pass from Caleb Martin when it eventually gets over there. But what happens? Derek White looks at Caleb Martin. He looks at Caleb Martin right here. He's looking at him. Look, he sees him. Okay, see that the ball's over there. And what happens? He points to Keita to go out and defend Caleb Martin wide open for three. No, Derek White, that is your man. That's your man. Do not, there's no reason Derek White should be taking Yabusele down in the paint when right now you have the matchups you want. You see, I almost said Cornette. Cornette is not out here. Keita is on Yabusele. Tatum is on Oubre. Brown is on Lowry. Pritchard is on Maxey. Okay, you have the matchups you want. You want Derek White to go over there and defend Caleb Martin because otherwise you're matched up defensively in the positions you want. But why does Derek White want to switch onto Yabusele? And why does he want to switch Keita, who's on Yabusele, the matchup you want? Why does he want to switch Keita out onto Caleb Martin right here? It makes no sense whatsoever. And this is really one of the more horrendous plays of the entire night and really of the fourth quarter with the Celtics down 12. Derek White and the Celtics defense just leaves Caleb Martin wide open as we see Derek White finally reacts. But on the play before, let's bring it back to the last screenshot here. He is pointing towards Keita. Go out there. No, this is not a switch. This is not a switch. Derek White should be sprinting over to Caleb Martin. And by the time he does, it's way too late. Caleb Martin is already into a shooting motion. And this is way, way, way too late right here. Way too late for the Celtics to be picking up Caleb Martin, who was wide open during the fourth quarter. And the Celtics are down 12 here. Caleb Martin made this three. Celtics are all of a sudden down 15. 5.5 minutes into the fourth quarter when they were up 2. We started this film breakdown session. The Celtics were up 2. They're now down 15. after this shot. Going further here, this is where the Celtics, again, just boneheaded decisions, makes no sense. So right here, they're doubling. So they were right here. They were admittedly scared of Caleb Martin. Oh, we've left him open too many times. They're down 13 here. The Celtics are doubling Caleb Martin, but then what do? They leave Tyrese Maxey streaking. If you see him there on the far side of the floor, they leave Tyrese Maxey streaking down the floor with a wide open lane. Look at this. What is going on? Now, you could argue this could be Pritchard or Brown right here communicating the switch or this double. If you're doubling Caleb Martin, why are you leaving Tyrese Maxey wide open? Because we saw the play before, you're doubling Tyrese Maxey, you want to get the ball out of his hands, but now you're doubling Caleb Martin. You're shading over to him way too much, and they do not communicate this whatsoever. And Brown or Pritchard, whether it's supposed to be either one of them, they have to be stopping Tyrese Maxey streaking down towards the paint right here, because on this particular screenshot, you don't have anything but a clear open lane for Tyrese Maxey and him streaking with the ball as it's being passed to him from Caleb Martin right here. And I'll even point out further in this play, I mean, what is going on? Number one, Derek White can't decide. This is where the defensive rotations are just not crisp for the Celtics right now at all. Derek White is in not the greatest of position and really in a halfway position here. You have to commit to stopping ball, especially when it's going towards the rim wide open. Horford is on Yabusele. Tatum is on Oubre. White, he's on Lowry in the corner, but right here, when you have a wide open lane for Tyrese Maxey, who's streaking towards the basket with a wide open layup right in front of his face, you have to be stopping ball if you're Derek White right here. And you notice Pritchard and Brown, they're not communicating this because everybody is actually focused right now on Kyle Lowry. I shouldn't say everybody, but Pritchard, Brown, Derek White. Derek White is concerned about Kyle Lowry in the corner, but so is Brown and Pritchard. And guess who's left wide open? Now he's not even in position to shoot, and he's not going to get the ball here. But Caleb Martin is going to be left wide open streaking if the ball's stopped by Derek White right here, okay? Say, for instance, it is stopped by Derek White. Kick out to Kyle Lowry. Martin, step up. There's nobody on Martin because Pritchard and Brown are both sprinting towards Kyle Lowry. Three guys, White, Brown, Pritchard, all focused on Kyle Lowry right here, really more so than stopping the ball, and one person, whether it's Brown or Pritchard, taking Caleb Martin. So a breakdown at the top of the key here, really the top of the wing or near midcourt, and then it turns into just this complete and utter breakdown with Tyrese Maxey going towards the lane. And Maxey, of course, look at this screenshot. He gets a wide open layup. This is pretty much a wide open layup in the NBA. You have Derek White looking from the side, Maxey using his left hand, his opposite hand. Horford's not in position to contest this. Derek White's really not contesting this. And you don't see Caleb Martin, but he's streaking behind this play. And Brown and Pritchard, Kyle Lowry, everybody. Derek White, too focused on Kyle Lowry, didn't commit to stopping ball. Brown and Pritchard, both running, two guys running out one guy and Kyle Lowry. So you have three players essentially, too focused on Kyle Lowry, where one should have been focused on stopping ball being Derek White, and either Brown or Pritchard focused on staying with Caleb Martin at the top of the key while one goes and tries to either deter the pass over to Kyle Lowry or when the pass is over there, they're on him, and then from there, deterring the swing pass, whether it's Brown or Pritchard, on Caleb Martin. And again, collapsing defense. Look at all the eyes. Brown, Pritchard, eyes on Lowry. White, obviously. I shouldn't say on Lowry. Maxey, who's streaking down the paint right here. Wide open layup. Brown, Pritchard, eyes on Maxey. White, eyes on Maxey. Horford, eyes on Maxey. Tatum, eyes on Maxey. That's why you want to penetrate the paint in the NBA right there. Here we go. Keep going. There's more. I know there's 5 minutes left in the game. The Celtics are down 13, and after this bucket, 15. But there's more. There's more, folks. There's more. There's more. Right here, you have off-ball action with Caleb Martin and Paul George. And again, just miscommunication because at this point, look, what's so crazy about this is the Sixers were destroying the Celtics with Joel Embiid off the floor. Okay. They were destroying the Celtics with Joel Embiid off the floor. He hasn't been on the floor the whole time. That's what made the Kata presence and the Cornet presence so confusing. Is Embiid, he's not even out on the floor at this point in time. Those matchups, whether you're putting Kata or Cornet into the game, they're meant to go out and defend Joel Embiid. Right now, you have Horford out there. That's fine and good. But Joel Embiid, playing as a passer here at the top of the key, he finally comes out onto the floor with about 5 minutes left in the game. Sixers, he comes out. The Sixers are sort of destroying the Celtics at this point. It's an 11-point lead, and the Celtics were trying to keep pace with the Sixers at this point in time. But right here, you have White and Pritchard off ball action with Martin and Paul George, who comes out on the floor. Paul George wasn't out there either at this point in time or at the beginning of the fourth quarter. Paul George has a wide open lane down to the bucket. And both Pritchard and White look at Paul George and go, well, we cannot give up this layup. We cannot give up this layup. We cannot give up this layup. And this is where the communicational issues start. Look at this right here. White and Pritchard, both of them. And you could even say Tatum could stop this drive to the bucket or really cut to the bucket and this pass to the bucket while Pritchard or White takes Caleb Martin or White rotates over to Oubre in the corner there. You could do that as a defensive rotation right here. You could have Tatum stop the cut, Pritchard stop Caleb Martin, and White stop Oubre. Okay, you have all your pieces covered. That's not what happens. Pritchard and White both follow Paul George into the paint, and guess who is left wide open? This is a wide open attempt, folks. This is wide open. It's driving me crazy. You can't even see me on camera right now, but it's wide open. It's absolutely wide open. I mean, look at this. Three guys really on Paul George, and Tatum's in good position to recover here on Oubre, but White and Pritchard both take Paul George. They do not communicate this. And look who's left wide open. And by the time White realizes this, he trips, and it's way too late. Way too late here. Way too late. Wide open three. And look, White just stumbling, trying to get out to him, but Caleb Martin is wide open. Wide open. And this is an easy pass and read for Joel Embiid to make. Like, oh, Joel Embiid, what a great playmaker. Well, you could be an awful playmaker. You could be the worst playmaker in the world and make this read. Come on, Celtics defense. Come on. This is 101. This is communication right here. One guy streaking towards the lane. You could have either had Tatum stop the drive, one guy rotate over to Oubre, one guy stay on Martin, or one guy stay on Martin. One guy take the cutter and Paul George, have Tatum, of course, hedge a little bit, and then recover onto Oubre. Instead, White and Pritchard both go to Paul George, and now White is stumbling out to Caleb Martin, who, of course, wide open for three. Wide open. Just frustrating. Frustrating. Especially at this point in the game where you think, oh, big fourth quarter, Celtics came back. Here we go. And it's defensively where the Celtics are falling apart. And this was probably the most highlighted play of the night for the Celtics because at this point in time, the Celtics had mounted sort of a comeback here. I mean, they were down 5 with a minute 11 seconds left. Celtics are down 5 after they'd been down 15 in the fourth quarter. So the comeback had been mounted a little bit here. But my goodness, again, communication, and defensive lapses. Right now, you have Horford on Embiid. White is being screened by Embiid at the top of the key. You have to stop the cutter going down to the lane. You have to switch on this. What needs to happen really here is Pritchard. He's defending the inbounder, who's Caleb Martin. Pritchard needs to tag Maxey here and take him and prevent this pass from going to Maxey and prevent Maxey from going to the lane. Or even right here, you could have Horford stop Maxey. You could have White switch on to Embiid and Pritchard still defend the pass in the inbounder. Whatever combination you wanted to do, that's how you need to cover this. Instead, what happens is complete communicational breakdown, complete rotational breakdown from the Celtics right here. White screened, Horford stays on Embiid, and Pritchard not really a factor in stopping anything right here. Maxey, he's going to get the pass. Pritchard not even looking at the inbounder. White, he's looking at the inbounds play. He's chasing Maxey around the screen right now, this Embiid screen. And what happens? Tyrese Maxey, wide open lane. for Tyrese Maxey. Pritchard cannot get to the pass. Pritchard clearly not in a, I mean, there's no good positioning here for Pritchard. I mean, he's behind Maxey right now. They're both trying to, Pritchard is stumbling. Maxey is sprinting towards the paint right here. Pritchard not in a good position. If we even go back to the last screenshot here, Pritchard not in a good position to stop ball or stop Maxey from streaking down the lane whatsoever right here. And of course, Maxey collects the ball, even stumbles on this play with the ball. And this is just a wide open layup right here. Wide open. He even stumbles. Jaylen Brown comes over, not in a good position to contest whatsoever. And my goodness, Tyrese Maxey. This is what I don't want to say. This is not necessarily what lost the Celtics the game, but if you make a stop here, there's zero point 0.4 left on the shot clock right here. Okay, zero point 0.4. And when the inbound pass is coming in, if we go back a couple of screenshots here, 1.1. So the Celtics, they're on the verge of making a stop right here and getting the ball back down 5 with a minute and 11 left. That's still a lot of time to make something happen. Instead, Tyrese Maxey, as the shot clock expires, lays it up and in for a 7-point lead on the Celtics with a minute 10 to go in the game. And let's see if I can pull up another one here. Let's see if I can pull up another. And this is the result for the Celtics right here, right? This next screenshot. This is Celtics Nation. We're all Grinches for Christmas. Bah humbug. After the entirety of that fourth quarter where the Celtics break down defensively. And I didn't even show any offensive screenshots here for the Boston Celtics because it didn't matter. The Celtics hit shots offensively. They played all right on that end of the floor. Hasn't been efficient all season. But really, the Celtics defensively is where they broke down in the fourth quarter rotationally. Could not get it done on the defensive end of the floor at all. The Boston Celtics, disappointing performance on Christmas Day, completely disappointing. And this ESPN screenshot right here of the Grinch in the crowd embodied it all. The Grinch's heart did not grow at the TD Garden on Christmas Day. Whew. Man, that was a lot. That was a lot. That's why we haven't done a film breakdown this year. Man, that was like a 30-minute breakdown, but you saw it. You saw it all there. Every screenshot, the Celtics, what is going on with their defensive rotations? It's communication, it's effort, it's positioning. It's the team playing as a unit. The Celtics are not doing that right now, defensively specifically. Okay, there's been some okay defensive performances with the Celtics as of late. But against the Philadelphia 76ers, that was one of the worst ones we've seen all season. A defensive performance from the Celtics, giving up 118 to the Sixers, 36 points in the second quarter, 36 points in the fourth quarter. You saw 16 points in the third quarter from the Philadelphia 76ers, yet 36 back in the fourth. And it was really all due to the Celtics leaving guys wide open, not covering players the way they should have been, not rotating, not communicating the way the Celtics should have been. And we really know, as Celtics fans, Celtics analysts, Celtics Nation here, we know what the Celtics are capable of when they're communicating, when they're on their game. They're playing physical, they're playing crisp, they're hitting at all the little things, whether it's positioning, communication, covering their man, covering who, of course, they're supposed to be rotating to. We know what the Celtics are capable of. They're the best defensive team in the NBA. They're the best offensive team in the NBA. Right now in December, 6-5, we're not seeing that from the Celtics. We're not. And it's one of the first times we've seen it for this long of a stretch in a year and a half, really. And I hate to say it, but the Celtics, at this point in time, you don't want to ring the alarm bells. Still 22-8, still constructively the best team in the NBA. Still expect to go back to back. But it's not working at this point in time. It's not working. And there's no changes on the horizon either with this roster. They say, oh, can we re-sign Lonnie Walker? Trade deadline. Is there going to be somebody below the MLE the Celtics can sign? This is the team. This is the team right now. And it's not, I want to say, it's not even in the constructivity of the team really in its entirety. It's really the effort of the Celtics. It's the lineup personnel of the Celtics. Who's out there to match up with who? It's communication, offensively, defensively, playing as a unit, unselfishly, rotating unselfishly, defensively, on offense, sharing the ball unselfishly. Right now on offense, we're seeing a more your turn, my turn type of thing at some portions of the game. And what's frustrating about this Celtics team too is you see glimpses, okay, and even more than a glimpse too. I will say you'll see big portions of games where the Celtics are playing their A game. You saw it actually against the Sixers late in the fourth. I know we just did the defensive breakdown for the fourth, right? But late in the fourth, when the Celtics wanted to come back offensively, they did. In the third, when they wanted to come back, they did. In the Magic game, they're down 10. They wanted to come back in the fourth. They did. The Bulls game, they're down 10. They made it a 4-point game late in the game. They did. But the Celtics cannot dig themselves that hole to be in that position of needing to come back, needing to turn up the intensity. The intensity already needs to be there for the Boston Celtics. And that's what's frustrating about this Celtics team right now. And as we're an hour and 34 minutes in here, I do want to talk about the Sixers before we get off this post-game show here, this Christmas Day post-game show where the Celtics just blow one to the 76ers. The Sixers, uh, are they contenders right now? Are they contenders? I will say, losing Jared McCain for the season actually looks like it's going to be maybe big for the Sixers because Jared McCain was a really good rookie from the Philadelphia 76ers. And he looked well on his way to winning Rookie of the Year. And he was the Sixers' best player for a long stretch of time when Joel Embiid was out of the lineup, when Paul George was out of the lineup. Paul George looks like a shell of his former self right now, unfortunately. And the Clippers not paying him actually looks great at this point in time, but we'll see. He's been dealing with multiple hyperextended knee injuries, so we'll have to see how his season really develops. I will say as time moves on. But the Sixers, the team they were on Christmas Day against the Celtics, we just went into it on film breakdown. The Celtics really shot themselves in the foot a lot in the game. So you have to look at that and go, okay, Celtics did shoot themselves a lot in the foot and let the Sixers do what they needed to do in order to win the game. But after a after a horrendous start to the season, all right, Celtics started great to the season. They're starting to be horrendous. The Sixers, they're 11-17. 6 games below 500. Okay, they're inching their way up to the standings right now. It looked like a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it doesn't really look like the Sixers are. They might not even make the play-in. They might not even make the play-in. Certainly don't look like a playoff contender. They don't look like an Eastern Conference contender. Didn't look like a playoff team. Okay, not at all. They can barely beat the Brooklyn Nets. Right now, 6 games under 500, 11-17. Sixers picked up a big momentous win against the Boston Celtics on Christmas Day at the Garden. Okay, that gives teams, again, we talked about earlier in the post game, when you're facing the best team in the NBA and you go out and beat them, especially on their home floor, that's when your team gains a lot of confidence. And this could be a data point for the Philadelphia 76ers where they go, okay, look, we can compete with some of the best teams. Despite all of what we've gone through this year, the adversity the entire team went through, whether it was injury, players missing time, losing games, not having the entirety of personnel out there. The Sixers now can look at themselves and go, we can compete with the best because we just beat the Celtics on Christmas Day at the Garden. Still a long way to go until the playoffs. Sixers still a lot of clawing in the standings to do in order to get into a good seeding position for the Sixers. But you do look at them right now. Joel Embiid coming back, Paul George coming back, and they're still ramping up. I'll say both those players are still getting even healthier and healthier, right, as the season goes on. Do you look at the Philadelphia 76ers and think, maybe later in the season, if this team can stay healthy, okay, big point of emphasis on if this team can stay healthy because we haven't really seen it at all other than this tiny little stretch here. Can this Philadelphia 76ers team be a team in which contends for the Eastern Conference title or even title and contends alongside teams like the Celtics, like the Knicks, like the Cavaliers at the top of the standings? Because many of us expected coming into the season, I had the Sixers, I believe, I think I actually had them sixth in the standings, if I'm not mistaken. But I was really jockeying them up and down with the Pacers, the Cavs. I had them third at one point. A lot of people had the Celtics, Knicks, Sixers. They weren't thinking about the Cavs necessarily. Some people had the Pacers, some people had the Magic. But the Sixers looked like that team. Oh, them and the Sixers, or sorry, them and the Knicks. The Knicks and the Sixers looked like two teams who could challenge the Boston Celtics. Paul George, Joel Embiid, the Knicks, of course, adding on to the team which they had from last year, Karl Anthony Towns and Mikal Bridges. Can the Sixers be that team this year? They look, I don't want to say they look scary because the Celtics still have a better team than the Sixers. Don't get me wrong. But there's certainly depth on the Sixers. There's certainly length there defensively. There's certainly a lot of forwards and wings you look at on the Sixers squad and go, okay, those are pretty good compliments to Joel Embiid and Paul George, and even the guards on the Sixers, Reggie Jackson, Kyle Lowry, is Jared McCain. Can he come back later in the season? I know people are speculating he might be out the entirety of the season, but can he come back? Tyrese Maxey, of course. Think there's some motivation behind him. Is Tyrese Maxey an all-star? Is he this? Is he that? We'll see going later into this season if the Sixers can stay healthy, because that's their biggest flaw and point of emphasis right now is the health. The Sixers are all there and healthy. They are a competitive team to look out for, even though they're down in the standings, even after their horrible start. The Celtics, this is why they cannot tread lightly this season. This is why they cannot look over opponents because teams are coming after them. Teams are getting better. The league landscape is better. Last year, the Celtics, they faced the Miami Heat without Jimmy Butler. Donovan Mitchell went out in the series against the Celtics between the Cavs and the Celtics in the semifinals. Conference finals did not include Tyrese Halliburton. And in the finals, the Celtics faced a 5-seeded Mavericks team in which, I don't want to say luckily, but in the West, things definitely worked out for the Mavericks last year. This year is going to be much tougher for the Celtics if they want to go back to back. And this Sixers team, all of a sudden, that people thought at the beginning of the season could challenge the Celtics, but then went the other way and looked like maybe not even a playoff team. Now, after beating the Celtics at the Garden, the Sixers certainly look like a team right now. The Celtics cannot just overlook in the standings if the Celtics were to, you never know, face the Sixers in round one or even face the Sixers in round two. They can't. The Celtics cannot. They cannot do that with other opponents either. Well, I think that's going to be it for me tonight. Spieled on very long time here, hour 40 minutes. Christmas Day. This is really background here. Story. Ohio State fan. Ohio State lost to Michigan, all right? But guess what they did? They rebounded. They beat Tennessee. And they're still, if they beat Oregon, they're still in line for national championship. Now, they didn't win the Michigan game. They didn't win the Big Ten championship, but the national championship is still out there for them. This is one of those games for the Celtics that you go, my goodness, this is a highlight game of the season. Christmas Day at the Garden against the Sixers. It's going to be a highlight win of the season. And it turns out to be a highlighted loss of the season. Yet, it could be a loss in which wakes the Celtics up a little bit, especially after losing 3 of the last 4. And of course, going up against a team now in the Pacers on December 27th, and then again on December 29th, before facing, I believe, the Raptors on Christmas Eve, and then going on a West Coast road trip. This will be a big stretch, a big testament to whether the Celtics can really define themselves and identify themselves as the team we saw last season or a new team that we do not recognize or are starting to recognize in a more negative light this season at 22-8 right now. The Celtics can use this as motivation in this last stretch as a wake-up call, or they can let it snowball and continuously roll downhill until we're looking at a Celtics team that resembles Celtics teams of the past that could not get over the hump rather than the Celtics team we saw last year, in which was dominant the entirety of the season and that won the championship. But going forward, that's up to the Celtics to, of course, define. And we'll see here against the Pacers. against the Raptors, and then against many good teams on the West Coast as the Celtics head out west to start the new year. But with all that being said, we will have you covered here on the Celtics Talk Weekly post-game show for all of those games coming up. We had you covered here for Christmas as well. Solo show tonight. I promise more guys will be joining me for all these other shows. Rob, Justin, Franco, Ian, the whole cast, Brendan, Xavier, everybody, Randy. And of course, all of you guys out there, I want to wish you guys a Merry, Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. Although I know many in Celtics Nation, it couldn't have been that merry because of what we saw on Christmas Day. The Knicks win, the Lakers win, the Sixers win. Bah, humbug. But for everybody else out there in NBA land, of course, not a Celtics fan, I'm sure they had a great day. With the entire slate, Celtics fans not really feeling it from what happened. But looking ahead into the future, much more opportunity exists for the Celtics to go out there and make the season bright. So, with that being said, I leave you guys with a very Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. And as always, go Celtics. I should have played the music first. Let's face it. I should have played the music. We'll see you guys on Friday. That's it for me, folks. I'm Seamus.